I mean, this has been brought up in Bank of Canada reports. This has been brought in TD Economics reports, where they're saying the nature of the immigration coming into Canada, the reason we have been such a successful immigration story is because of our screening. We were really, up until very recently, we were very uptight about who we brought into the country. So you have to have skills, you have to speak the language, points-based immigration system. But 2021, that's all completely out the window.
Well, the news Canadian youth unemployment numbers are sending some mixed signals. And of course, in light of 99,000 new full-time jobs, it seems that our youth employment is down at an abysmal rate. And to talk to us more about that, the guy who wrote Don't Be Canada, How One Country Did Everything Wrong, Tristin Hopper. And by the way, don't expect a tip. Here's Tristin Hopper. How's it going, man?
Good. Thank you for having me back on your podcast.
Well, delighted. How's the book going?
Book's doing well. It is sold. It's weird because working in the video and podcast and writing space. I mean, hopefully, if you write a good article, it'll get 200,000 plus viewers. I mean, I've written articles that have done 1 million. I've written social media posts that have gotten north of 50 million. So you'll get a call from your book publisher, and it'll be like, "Oh, smash hit! Amazing sales." And I'll say, "Well, how many were sold?" And they'll say, "Well, more than 5,000." So, which sounds like a criminally low number, but I guess it's different levels of someone's buying it, they're picking it up, they're reading it, they're sharing it with their friends. So it's sort of this trade-off between you can write a social media post that has 80-90 million views, but the level of engagement is different than someone who actually picks up a book and spends their entire day reading it and potentially discussing it with their friends. So you're trading mass appeal for very dedicated appeal.
Yeah, no, and I commend you for noting that, because and by the way, the publishers are excited because 5,000 now means they extrapolate that into 100,000 over time. I'm sure that's their math methodology, but you're right. For somebody to actually engage and go through your entire thought process on a book, well, that's a real fan base. So, well, congratulations on that. I love your take on Canada on the whole, because you point out some stuff that many of us kind of think isn't obvious, but it seems to be missed by traditional media by and large, and missed sometimes by our own governments and ourselves. But this one is hard to miss. As I pointed out, just as we started here, 99,000 full-time jobs, and still we're at 14% unemployment among youth in Canada. This is a time in your life where getting a job is really important, I think, and learning how to handle being employed and manage money and manage the job and the workplace and all of that. And here we are.
Don't forget just socialization. I often say that, I'm a tall, rich kid who thinks he's better than everybody else. So very similar to BC Premier David Eby. I think there's an alternate course. Fortunately, I just got a bunch of entry-level jobs in my early 20s where it was just, hairy guys named Mike screaming at me to shut up and, put me on a more realistic course, making me the man I am today. If that had not existed, it's very possible I could be, gluing myself to a highway somewhere. Just culturally, a population of kids that are, working at, age 16 forward, I think that makes for a healthier population. But yes, I mean, you speak to anybody, the next time you're around someone under the age of 25 and you're looking for a conversation starter, ask them how impossible it is to find a job, because this is pretty uniform. This is just, summer opens up, either they're an undergraduate or they're a high school student and I'm going to make some money. And just dozens and dozens of resumes, wholly different from when I was a kid, in the 1990s, I live in a tourist town. You could find something. Most people who could find a job could find something. And the consensus, which is backed up by the data, so unemployment is, as your viewers probably know, unemployment means you're trying to get a job, but you can't get one. And then often what you'll have is you'll just have teenagers just exiting the job market and saying, well, I'm not going to find a job. Screw this.
Yeah,
I'll just take up more debt or whatever. So even with lots of teenagers becoming disillusioned and under 20s becoming disillusioned and exiting the job market, something that usually brings the unemployment rate down, we still have record high unemployment. So it's one of many things when I'm trying to explain Canada to non-Canadians or people who who are confused by the way we run ourselves. I'll often say, well, the impacts of our policies are very disparate. So someone who thinks Carney is doing a great job, and if you're on the front lines and you can see the problems, you can see the decline, you can see the various things that need to be fixed in Canada, it can seem baffling that we have a prime minister pursuing all these, and he still has an approval rating in 60% plus. And I asked them to consider there are large swaths of this country that never have to see the things that you're seeing. They don't go downtown, so they don't see the tent cities. They're retired. All they've seen is their real estate values are going up as a result of a dysfunctional economy. They're not the ones looking for entry-level jobs. So you'll actually see these employment reports, and it'll be among the 50-plus set. Unemployment is going down as it skyrockets for youth. So what younger people are experiencing is just a complete 180 from what older people are experiencing in Canada in a way that's never really existed before.
Well, Tristin, you pointed it out. When we were kids, I mean, I had 2 summer jobs. There was an abundance of summer jobs. I worked at the beer store during the day, and I worked fairly drunk as a waiter in the evenings. It's neither here nor there. But
I was a painter and a waiter. Yeah,
there was a plentitude of availability come summertime, and employers knew that there was going to be these students available. They planned work accordingly. They planned scheduling accordingly. It offset tourism potentially. Now, you just said something that tweaked me. I was like, yeah, these are entry-level positions. We used to call them summer jobs, summer employment positions, student employment. Now we call them entry-level jobs.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm using the term to just mean low-skilled jobs.
I'll be honest with you, Tristin, it comes up in the stats defined that way.
Interesting.
So now we're looking at, if you look at it statistically, and I guess I come off like a real math brain to everybody, but even to a layman like me, statistically speaking, those jobs have been amalgamated now. What was an entry-level job and a summer job are now all in the same silo.
Yes. So in terms of why this is happening, I'm sure everybody's just screaming at, whatever device they use to get their podcast. They're yelling at it right now and saying, well,
many devices.
Yeah. It's driven by immigration. And everybody has had this thought. You're like, okay, the youth can't get jobs. The last 5 fast food places I've gone to, seem to be a recent immigrant behind the counter. This seems to be driven by immigration. Now, sometimes, you can get that sense and, maybe it's not backed up by the numbers or whatever. But in this case, there's any number of serious-minded economists, whether it's CIBC reports or TD reports, and they'll just say, well, look at the stats. Canada's always had, well, not always, but ever since the Harper era, there's been sort of a low level of temporary foreign workers come in. The temporary foreign worker program was devised as a result of, you had crazy oil booms in Alberta. Anybody who can, open both eyes and sometimes even not, was able to get a job in the oil sands, starting at $25 an hour. So in that situation, you basically have like A&Ws and marshals and whatever mall type positions. Nobody could find work under any circumstances whatsoever. So you essentially had them petitioning the federal government to say, well, can we bring in, a student? They're here for 6 months. They make a higher wage. They send it home. Go back to it's something that's happened in Canada for 400 years. You used to bring Scots in. They'd work entry level bookkeeping at the HBC fort, and then they'd go back to Scotland with their earnings. So this is where it started. And then you saw a massive explosion, not just of the temporary foreign worker program. That's the one that gets all the heat. That's the one everybody hates. But if you look at the charts, it's like temporary migration, and then right around 2021, massive spike.
Right.
So 1 million people per year over the course of 3 years, the highest surge in immigration, certainly among any developed countries in that time period. So even compared to all the other Western countries that kind of have migration issues, Canada was well